Hi, this is Michael Learned, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
Ed Robertson, welcoming you back to TV Confidential, radio talk show about television. That's very happy to welcome back Mr. Pat Boone. Pat Boone, the legendary singer and actor and all-around entertainer who not only celebrated his 90th birthday a few months back, but also marked his 70th year in show business. Pat Boone not only has sold more than 45 million records and recorded more than 2,700 songs, he has also appeared in nearly 30 motion pictures, the latest of which, our Crossroads, is based on the true story of Bob and Barbara Fraley, a young couple who in 1969 followed their beliefs and, on the strength of their faith, successfully gained guardianship of 6 orphans. All that despite facing numerous obstacles from friends and family. Our Crossroads is set in both present-day Arizona and 1969 Ohio. Pat Boone and Michael Learned play Mr. and Mrs. Fraley in their later years, telling the story in the flashback. Our Crossroads also stars Tom Wopat, Kevin Sorbo, and Dean Cain. We'll tell you more about our Crossroads in just a second, but first we began our conversation by asking Pat, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Just came from the gym, a great hard workout with a trainer, and so I'm worn out, but I know, but I'm feeling good.
Well, I have a feeling if I do my job right, our conversation will energize you.
Yeah, well, if it's talking about things that are happening to me and for me and through me, then yeah, I do get excited about it.
I'm going to start off by asking you a few questions about our Crossroads, and because I know that's had some release in the last couple weeks. Then I know you completed production of the movie in which you played Thomas Jefferson. I know that's supposed to come out later in 2025. I'll ask you about that.
Yeah, I'm very proud of that, though Kevin Sorbo plays Jefferson in the earlier part of the film, and then I take over for the latter Jefferson, including his death scene. So, 2 of my movies I've already died in.
Well, actually, that's a pretty good way to start, because something similar goes on in our Crossroads, where you play an older version of a character. Your character and Michael Learned's character, you tell the story of our Crossroads in flashback, and so we see you as the present day Bob Fraley, and then in the flashbacks another actor plays the younger Bob Fraley. When in a situation like that, Pat, do the actors who play the older version and the younger version of the same character, do they confer with each other?
No, and you'd think they would, but this was not a huge studio, big production film, and it's well made and well directed, and I'm proud of it. But no, I did not meet the guy who played the young Bob Fraley, and I did not meet the real Bob Fraley until just a few days ago, because it was at the premiere, a sneak premiere of the film, which I got to see for the first time, and I sat 2 rows back in the theater from the real Bob Fraley, and when I saw him coming in outside the theater, the big Directors Guild theater, I saw this fellow being helped out of his car with a cane, and I thought, I bet that's Bob Fraley. I'd never met him. I talked to him on the phone before I played him and was going into the actual production. So I couldn't get much in the way of instruction. I just told him I was going to do my best to portray him in the very complimentary way, which I think he deserved. I know he did. But anyway, I saw him getting out of the limo, and I too had a cane at that moment from a hip surgery, which I am recovering from. And so I came in, and I wound up sitting 2 rows behind him before we were even introduced. And I said, "Are you Bob Fraley?" He said, "Yes." Well, I said, "Well, so am I." And nice to meet you. I'm your double. And it was very friendly and fun. And he loved the movie, the way he was portrayed by me and the other actor. And, of course, his whole family, the kids that he had adopted, except the one who had died, were there, all of them, in the theater as we watched their story. And I'm there just as a sort of a figurehead who did play him in his latter years. In the last scene in the film, in which I lead a prayer, and they let me just make it up, the prayer for the family and thanking God for our blessed home. They blessed the home by adopting 5 kids from a couple that had been killed in an accident, and took their children in and raised them with their own 3. So that makes, I think it was 9 kids, really.
9 kids at all. 9 kids at all. Plus,
yeah, nine kids. Yeah. So it was great to be with the real Bob Fraley and to feel like he feels that I portrayed him well.
Pat Boone's on the line with us. Pat Boone stars along with Michael Learned, Tom Wopat, Kevin Sorbo, Dean Cain, many others in Our Crossroads, a new biopic that tells a true story of Bob and Barbara Fraley, young couple who adopted 6 children in 1969 following the tragic car accident of a family friend. Rather than split up the family unit, the Fraleys petitioned the state courts to keep all 6 siblings together to join with their existing family of 5, as all 11 traveled across the country to start a new life together. Our Crossroads was recently screened in a few select cities, including Los Angeles, which Pat just mentioned, as well as Scottsdale, Arizona, and Greenville, Ohio. For more information on the movie, to find out if it's coming to a city near you, go to ourcrossroads.movie, ourcrossroads.movie, or Our Crossroads Movie on Facebook. I understand that you first met Michael Learned on the movie. You'd never crossed paths with her before. This is a stupid question, but I'm not an actor. Let me ask it anyway. How do you go as an actor, Pat? How do you go from "Hi, Michael, nice to meet you" to playing 2 people who have been married for more than 50 years and shared all this whole lifetime of experiences together? How do you go from 0 to 60?
I tell you, she made it so easy. Of course, I was familiar with her from the Waltons. Mm-hmm. And I was so surprised to see that she still seems today as not as young, but much younger than you would think.
Yes.
One that was already playing an older woman in the Waltons. But she is a consummate actress, of course, and a lovely woman in her own self. And as we sat that long afternoon where we filmed most of our scenes, I got to know her well, and of course I was, as an actor, but identifying with her as having been her husband, and had lived that rich life as she did, and esteeming her like I did. And we felt a connection, we really did. And then at the premiere, we had plenty of time to get together again, her with her more recent husband. Nice man. I'm glad that he was happy with the way that I had held hands with, and even impulsive. It was not in the script, but leaned over and kissed her on the cheek in one scene, and as just an expression of endearment, which is, impulsively I did, and which she welcomed. So it was really a wonderful experience because, her fame and her recognizability, as the mama in the Waltons, mm-hmm. Gave her a built-in character and likelihood. Audiences would love her right away, and they do. And of course, I was playing the husband who had loved her for all those years and shared those experiences. So it was a great experience, and I even at the premieres, we said goodbye, and she let me kiss her on the cheek again, and her husband winking at me. It was a relationship that I think we'll both treasure for the rest of our lives, which may not be a long time, but we can treasure it.
Pat Boone is on the line with us. Pat can be seen in Our Crossroads, a true story of family and faith that also stars Michael Learned, Tom Wopat, Kevin Sorbo, and Dean Cain. Our Crossroads recently was screened in a few select cities, including L.A., Scottsdale, Arizona, and Greenville, Ohio. To find out if it is coming to a city near you, go to ourcrossroads.movie. Do you know whether the movie is going to be released, on home entertainment or in other cities, or is that still to be determined, Pat?
I am told that it will be July, sort of an all-out, all-available kind of a release. And look, let me just say something about it.
Sure.
I've been in the movies off and on for, 60 years. My recording career is a 70-year career. But in the middle of that, I began to make movies like State Fair and Journey to the Center of the Earth, and some films that are now considered really classics, Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals and so on. So I know something about the movie business, and I am aware that there was a long time when American movies were our major export. To the rest of the world, they told the world that America was a great place in which to live, a great place of character, and a society where good guys were honored and the bad guys were punished or caught up with and put out of business. and it made the world envy our country. Something happened in the 70s, and we began to export on television shows like Dallas and other shows in which wealthy, successful Americans were corrupt and would take advantage of other people and adulterous, and then those things became widely popular all over the world. And then the movies took it up and filmed rotten, corrupt stories in which quite often the villains, the killers, are the heroes, and the ones you want to wait and see again because of the way they're filmed. And we are exporting corruption and degradation and violence and smut and just outright, I think, evil to the rest of the world in the films and even television now. And now the internet is enabling the worst things to be seen. If you want to look for them, they're there, and they are looked after, and they are popular and very lucrative for the creators. The worse it is, sometimes the more money it will make. And so I am so upset about that because film is very, very, and has always been influential. And it's been influential on young people especially, but on all of us. And what we see in the films and which things that are applauded and honored, they become very popular in just the regular society. And we're going to be paying terrible prices for a long time. I just want people to go and take their families, their kids, to see this film that we're talking about right now, Crossroads, because it's a true story of real people who did real things and who brought good into the world and have been blessed for it. And it's the kind of examples that we ought to be producing and showing and promoting in film. And because there's an onslaught of stuff that is terrible, poison, really, spiritual and moral poison. But we need antidotes like this film. And if we let it go by and don't, like the Reagan film I'm in as well, in which this film is very, very complimentary, as it should be, to Ronald Reagan and Nancy, and the kind of president that he was, and who I think ought to be on that big mountain.
Mount Rushmore, yeah.
Anyway, we need to see these films. We need to pay to see them. We need to promote them, because if we make them profitable, then the movie business will make more of them. If we don't, then we're going to get more of the garbage.
Pat Boone can be seen in Our Crossroads. Pat Boone, along with Michael Learned, Tom Wopat, Kevin Sorbo, Dean Cain. Our Crossroads recently screened in Los Angeles, Scottsdale, Arizona, and Greenville, Ohio. If all goes well, it will be released wide in July of 2025. To keep up for more information, go to ourcrossroads.movie, ourcrossroads.movie. Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back. This portion of TV Confidential is brought to you by PrisonFit. PrisonFit, a new, comprehensive, and integrated approach to exercise, food, and employment that was developed by prisoners for prisoners. parolees, and anyone else listening to this program who would like to improve their overall health and well-being. You can learn more about Prison Fit by going to prisonfitlife.com. Prison Fit's mission is to create work, programs, and partnerships that will provide both incarcerated inmates and released or paroled individuals with meaningful employment, training, rehabilitation, and reentry opportunities while treating them with dignity and respect. Prison Fit's main program, Introduction to Small Business, not only has graduated more than 500 in-prison students, but has produced a 2-year released graduate recidivism rate of 6.7%. Prison Fit will expand its Introduction to Small Business program on a statewide basis in 2025, and this is where you can help. Prison Fit is conducting a Kickstarter campaign throughout the month of January 2025 to offer the public various fitness publications and products. The proceeds from this campaign will not only complete and launch these publications and products, but will provide the necessary resources for Prison Fit's statewide in-prison Introduction to Small Business course. For more information, go to prisonfitlife.com and click on the Go to Kickstarter button. That's prisonfitlife.com. Click on the Go to Kickstarter button. prisonfitlife.com. Click on the Go to Kickstarter button or go to kickstarter.com and search for Prison Fit.
Hi, this is Shirley Jones, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
As Pat just mentioned, Pat Boone can also be seen in Regan, the new biopic about our 40th president, starring Dennis Quaid and Penelope Ann Miller. Regan now available viewing on demand, many streaming platforms. He will soon be seen as Thomas Jefferson, one of our founding fathers in the American Miracle, a journey through many of the significant events that led to America's rise to power. The American Miracle, I understand, is scheduled for release in 2025. Similar question to what I asked you before, Pat. When you play a historical figure, such as Thomas Jefferson, or when you appear in a movie based on a historical figure or based on a historical event such as the Reagan movie, do you approach the material any differently than you would if you were playing a fictional character? Or do you just think in terms of...
Oh, yeah. Now, for instance, when I was getting real close to doing my part and going to Minneapolis where I was going to be filming, I called the director. And I said, I've been going over the script, and this is Elizabethan-type English. I mean, really, because in that time period...
Yes, we're talking 18th century, yeah.
They spoke, Washington, Jefferson, they were highly educated, and they spoke in educated ways, and that this is just the way they wanted to be heard and seen. They weren't talking like Harry Truman or Donald Trump. they were talking like really educated people.
Yeah.
And I was worried because it didn't come trippingly off my tongue. and so I called the director just a couple of days before I flew to Minneapolis. I said, look, it just occurred to me because I was really struggling with trying to make Jefferson sound like I thought he should sound. I said, wait a minute, he was a Southerner, wasn't he? He was in Virginia. And should I be speaking with a little bit of a drawl? And he said, yes. He said he was definitely a Southerner. A Southerner, not a Southerner, but a Southerner. Southerner, yes, he was definitely a Southerner. And so I had to, in my execution of his speeches, I tried to sound more like a man that had been raised in the South and not a Northerner. But yeah, I wanted to sound like I thought Jefferson. Now, I did a thing about Lincoln, too. It's an animated thing that has yet its release date is still indeterminated, but I wanted to. They asked me to do the Lincoln's Gettysburg Address.
Oh wow!
As the voice of Lincoln. Now, so here I'm being Lincoln and Reagan and Jefferson, and if you don't think I feel honored and grateful to that, then you just don't know me. But as Lincoln, I knew that he was a country boy. He was from Illinois. He was, grew up in a log cabin, and he didn't talk in some cultured-sounding way. So as I do him, I took a leaf out of the page of the Spielberg, I think it was, version of Lincoln with
Yes.
Daniel Day-Lewis, who didn't make Lincoln sound like this. 407 years, that was not, we'd like Lincoln to have sounded that way, but Daniel Day-Lewis did a lot of research, and I figured he knew what he was talking about. So when Lincoln gave that Gettysburg Address, he was in a field out in the open. He had just written it on the train getting there, and he was debating Stephen Douglas, and he had no microphone. He was talking out loud to a group of people out in a field on a platform. So I had to do it this way. 407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent, and I had to talk like that as Lincoln. Not Pat Boone. I didn't want to say, hey, there's Pat Boone. No, I wanted them to hear Lincoln as he must have sounded then.
Well, you played Lincoln, you played Thomas Jefferson. All you need to do is play Washington and Teddy Roosevelt, and we can argue that your face should be on Mount Rushmore too.
Yeah, at least chiseled away in some little corner, maybe. I played these guys. Yeah,
absolutely.
But what an honor, and I don't take them lightly. It's just a pleasure to have somebody want me to portray some of the great people in our history, and I pray that we will not forget, that we will not abandon, that we, in the movies in particular, Dennis Quaid did such a job of playing Reagan that when he was walking on the Oklahoma campus, where we were using some buildings there to duplicate Washington, the buildings, and he'd walk across that campus, and the extras said, they felt like they were looking at Ronald Reagan himself, the way he talked, the way he looked. I mean, he took on the character of Reagan magnificently. And by the way, talking about my films, if you go to Amazon Prime, you can find a couple other films that I have done. And thing is, we didn't get much in the way of wide release in the theaters, but one is called, it had been called Boonville Redemption. We changed it to Miracle in the Valley, which is a title I hate. But it sounds so placid. I wanted to call it Murder in the Church because that's a scene in the first of the film in which a little town up north, which actually is Boonville in California. It's northern California. It must have been created by some descendants of Daniel Boone, and so in Boonville, I play an old doctor who is a very prominent part, who helps bring the town tyrant to justice. He's taken over the town, and is very he's a guy to be feared. And I'm the old judge that finally brings him to justice and takes him away from the town. It's a wonderful film, but he is responsible for the death of the local minister in the country church at the very beginning of the film. And I thought, Christian people go to movies like everybody else, and they, if a film has a real placid, quaint-sounding title, they might not be as attracted to it as Murder in the Church. they wouldn't take that title, so it's now still called Miracle in the Valley. But it's a good film, and I think I play a really good role in that film, and I would recommend it to people. And so some of these films that I've made are now available, but you have to know about them or you'll never see them.
And one way to know about them is to invite Pat Boone to come on TV Confidential to talk about them, which we're doing.
Yeah, and I really appreciate your knowledge of the films and maybe my part, and also how and when people can see them. I appreciate this.
Okay, and as Pat just mentioned, A Miracle in the Valley is available, viewing on demand as we speak. Pat Boone can also be seen opposite Michael Learned, Tom Wopat, Kevin Sorbo, and Dean Cain in Our Crossroads. Our Crossroads scheduled for wide release later in 2025. More information, ourcrossroads.movie. Pat will be back for part 2 of our conversation next week on TV Confidential. We'll talk a little more about The American Miracle, another movie scheduled for release in 2025 in which Pat plays Thomas Jefferson. We'll also ask him about some of his earlier movie roles, including working with such leading ladies as Barbara Eden and Shirley Jones. Pat Boone, part 2 of our conversation next week on TV Confidential. We'll take a quick time out, then we'll welcome Dawn Moore. Dawn Moore, daughter of Clayton Moore, the actor known around the world as the Lone Ranger. Dawn Moore will join us when we come back on TV Confidential.